Today we are having a closer look at the Zenith El Primero and what makes it so bueno. If this is your first visit to the channel, welcome! Now if you're a subscriber to the channel, thank you so much, it does help. So about that El Primero, I thought we'd go over a few reasons why you might want to take a closer look at the Zenith El Primero. In the 1960s there was a bit of a race happening between a few players in the watch industry. The goal was to create the world's first automatic chronograph. The participants were the Chronomatic group, Zenith and Seiko. Now who actually won that race depends on, well, which marketing director you ask. Now in any case, the El Primero was introduced in 1969 as the world's first high-frequency automatic chronograph movement. That is also where its name comes from. El Primero, the first integrated automatic chronograph. 1969 people, Zenith on top of its game. Now victory, however, was rather short-lived as the quartz crisis came raining down and eventually, yes, Zenith was sold to US-based namesake Zenith Radio Corporation. This was a time where Swiss watchmaking seemed to be doomed forever, a time where it seemed the Swiss might have to go back to fully focusing on making the world's second best chocolate once again. The new American owners were betting the farm on quartz watches and wanted to focus on that and nothing else, and thus they ordered that the production of all mechanical movements be stopped. And that is the end of this story. If not for a fellow called Charles Vermoe. Charles who, you ask? Well, Charles the Great if you ask a Zenith fan. He did not agree with this move at all. He did not want to abandon Swiss watchmaking and had absolutely no interest in making the world's second best chocolate at all. He wanted to keep rolling out the world's greatest mechanical chronograph movements. Charles Vermoe was a long-time employee at Zenith and a driving force behind the El Primero development. Being the chronograph movement specialist that he was, he felt very strongly that there was indeed a future for mechanical watches. He even wrote a letter to management where he stated:
Messieurs, c'est du n'importe quoi, c'est le délire total, ça me saoule. Je ne sais pas ce que vous fumez à Chicago, mais ça me fait
Now that was not accurate. He did write a letter, but it was a very polite letter where he indeed declared that there was a future for the mechanical watch. Having understood, however, that management did not feel the same way and that they were about to throw out anything linked to mechanical watchmaking, with the help of his brother he went out of his way to hide away essential tools, presses, plans and such which were essential to the construction of the El Primero caliber. Afterwards, as we all know, the Swiss survived of course the quartz crisis and kept making the world's second best chocolate as well. Years later, Zenith was eventually back under new Swiss management and eventually there was demand for the El Primero movements. Now thanks to Charles Vermoe's act of defiance out of his love for watchmaking, Zenith was in fact ready to start producing the calibers again as he had nicely saved away all the necessary things to make this happen. Now, as a result, the El Primero, for example, found its way to Rolex. Rolex was looking for the very best automatic chronograph movement for its Daytona, which until then, by the way, had a manual wind movement. Now, with the adoption of the El Primero caliber, it was finally turned into an automatic winding caliber. Excellent movements, highly accurate to this day, and superb history and available in plenty of different models. While that may be a negative to some, I find it very appealing to the El Primero line that you have in fact a nice and wide choice here for the watch you are looking for. Now the El Primero watches, unlike many modern chronographs, also tend to be very nicely proportioned, so with very wrist-friendly case diameters. If you haven't yet, make sure to check these out in the metal, as they wear very nicely indeed. Zenith is to this day not really a big name brand, so within the watch community everybody of course knows them and everybody respects the El Primero caliber, but I would dare to say that today the average consumer most certainly knows Rolex, but that is certainly not true for Zenith, so it is still very much a niche brand, and that to me has its charm. There are many El Primeros to choose from, such as the one we are looking at here. So, do you have a favorite? Drop a note in the comments, I'm actually very curious. If you haven't looked into the El Primero yet, do yourself a favor and, well, start researching.